Good afternoon. This is Darren Clable, the South Dakota State Fire Meteorologist. Today is Tuesday, June 28th, 2022, and I will be talking about the potential for fire weather tomorrow, Wednesday, the 29th of June, 2022. First things we're going to look at is our fuels conditions across the state and the region. On the upper left-hand corner is our 100-hour fuel moisture. This is valid as of yesterday, the 27th of June. Below that, you'll see our observed 1,000-hour fuel moisture. 100-hour fuel moistures are running anywhere from 6 to 15% across the state, driest across the southwestern corner of South Dakota. 1,000-hour fuel moistures are running anywhere from 11 to 15% over southwestern SD and exceeding that over eastern and northern parts of the state. Our ERCs across the state are, in fact, above the 80th percentile in most areas across the prairies, again, valid yesterday, the 27th. The Black Hills above the 50th percentile, still a little bit warmer or a little bit hotter, a little bit drier than average for this time of the year. Going into southwestern South Dakota, so this is our energy release component for the predictive services area that encompasses the Badlands and Pine Ridge Reservation. We can see that the blue line is this year. We are currently above the 90th percentile in terms of that geographic region. The previous chart was just for RAWS stations, so we're hanging out in between the 90th and 97th percentile, and we are approaching the maximum for this time of the year. Going into south central South Dakota, same graph, but for the Fort Pierre Lower Rural area, again between the 90th and 97th percentile, with ERCs approaching time of year maximums. Southeastern South Dakota, same story. The red line, time of year maximum, the gray line, average. This is again ERCs for fuel model Y. And again, we're approaching time of year maximums for ERCs. So we have been getting a little bit of precipitation across the state, but our fuels are still remaining quite dry. Speaking of precipitation, here is our observed 14-day precipitation for the state. There have been areas of South Dakota that have been getting some decent moisture, anywhere from 1/4 of an inch up to 1 1/4 inches. But if you look closely, you'll notice that there are some very dry areas of the state, most notably down from the Pine Ridge area through the Rosebud Indian Reservation, all the way up in Platte, Mitchell, kind of going up towards Madison and just hooking in west of Brookings, very, very dry area of the state. Ziebach County is not a lot of data in here, but yeah, this area has been historically dry for this time of the year. And you also notice some dry areas across the western area of the Pine Ridge Reservation coming into the foothills of the Black Hills. We did have a 90-acre fire out in this area a few days ago, and another 40-acre fire out in this area a few days ago. And then, of course, we had the Cheyenne River Bottom fire, where the Cheyenne River Bottom intersects Lake Oahe, and, of course, 3,800-acre fire down on the Rosebud Indian Reservation in that area. So definitely some dry pockets out there, although some areas have been getting some moisture and some beneficial moisture at that, but that beneficial moisture has not at all been widespread. And this is a similar graph, but this is 14-day observed precipitation radar derived. And I just show this because it really shows that there are holes in the precipitation. Take the actual amount of precipitation with a grain of salt, but do look at these larger holes in the precipitation, just showing that there are areas of the state that haven't seen a lot of rainfall. And so, yeah, again, it's convective in nature, the rain that we have been getting, but definitely there are dry pockets out there. And where we do have those dry pockets, they're seeing dry to even exceptionally dry fuels for this time of the year. Going into tomorrow, the weather conditions tomorrow are going to be interesting. There's kind of a little front that's going to be crossing the state throughout the day. So I have on here temperatures at 1100 Mountain, 1200 Central Time tomorrow. It's going to be warm in the morning. Look at this. Rapid City is already going to be approaching the upper 90s. Pierre mid-90s. Yankton hitting 90 by midday. If we fast forward that to 1500 hours, here, South Central South Dakota, we might even reach 106 to 108 in South Central South Dakota. That would not surprise me whatsoever. There is kind of a weak frontal boundary in that area, and the areas that are going to be east of that is going to be hot, and areas west of that might actually be a little bit cool as you go through the day. I think Rapid City's temperature will peak in the early afternoon, anywhere from noon to 1400 hours, and then it might taper off after that once a little bit of cooler air kind of comes pushing through. If we look at minimum RHs at 1100 Mountain Time tomorrow, the Black Hills are going to maintain dry conditions throughout the night. We'll probably see maximum RH recoveries in the 25 to 40% range. But by 1100 tomorrow, we're going to be down into that 10 to 20% range for western South Dakota. And of course, eastern South Dakota, a little bit more humid, but there's definitely a drier boundary through that area. If we fast forward to 1500 Mountain Time, this whole area of central South Dakota, we're going to be looking at south central South Dakota anywhere from 8 to 15% in terms of RH. So exceptionally dry air in that region. Also note that eastern South Dakota will be seeing southerly winds. Western South Dakota will be seeing westerly winds. Again, there's kind of a boundary that's setting up in that area along where those winds deflect. Speaking of wind gusts tomorrow morning, this is at 1100 Mountain Time. Wind gusts across south central South Dakota anywhere from 35 to 45 miles per hour. Western South Dakota, inclusive of the Black Hills, anywhere from 15 to 25 miles per hour in terms of those gusts. But if we go forward in time, you'll see some changes. Again, we have our boundary right there demonstrating that change between the gusty southerly winds ahead of that boundary and kind of the relatively lighter winds, westerly winds west of that boundary. But you'll also see pockets of strong wind gusts. These are going to be associated with some convective storms that are expected to form tomorrow early afternoon, extending into the evening hours. Because the air is so incredibly warm and so dry, we do expect to have at least some potential for dry lightning across western and central South Dakota tomorrow afternoon and tomorrow evening. So let's take a look at kind of the weather model's representation of reflectivity tomorrow at 1500 Mountain Time, 1600 Central Time. And again, you can see that the model is showing the potential for a few convective cells forming over western South Dakota. And then if we extend that into 2100 hours Central Time, 2000 hours Mountain Time, again, kind of dissipating as those storms get east river, but again, more convection west river. And I do not expect much precipitation to fall with any of those storms just because the air mass is incredibly dry over the western part of the state. This is our hot, dry, windy index for tomorrow. This is our probability of exceeding the 90th percentile. And again, southeastern South Dakota, very high probabilities of exceeding that 90th percentile. So historically speaking, the 29th of June this year is going to be much hotter, much drier, much windier than any other June 29th within this 30-year climatology. So just something to keep in mind. Going forward through the 4th of July weekend, there is going to be some opportunity for precipitation. This is a 7-day precipitation forecast. So this goes through next Wednesday, but by and large, western South Dakota should remain mostly dry. Most areas getting less than a quarter inch of precipitation. A little bit more precipitation on the eastern side of the state, but not a lot to speak of. So we're going to maintain some heat, some dry conditions going through the weekend. And, you know, that definitely worries me with respect to ignitions from lightning. And then, of course, you know, with 4th of July fireworks, there could be some human-caused ignitions out there on the landscape as well. So to summarize, there's currently a red flag warning in effect for south central South Dakota tomorrow, Wednesday, June 29th. It is possible that we might see some geographic extension of that red flag warning, both to the east and to the west. It's going to be hot and dry tomorrow. The strongest winds are going to be over East River areas. With those strong southerly winds. Western South Dakota is going to see more of a westerly wind, gusty around any thunderstorms that do form. And of course, dry lightning is possible. If you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. My contact information is below. Stay safe tomorrow and have a great 4th of July weekend.